Good afternoon. I guess that's what the time is here, so I'll say that. I'm Gimbal B, and welcome to Boots on the Ground. Today I am joined by Delta Iden,
Hello.
Denny Fleetfoot,
Hello, guys.
and the Black Jackal.
G'day.
So I kind of just want to start this off with Fanfest happened. There was a lot of drama. There was a lot of major cock-ups. I guess we'll call it that.
No, that's exactly the right way to call it.
Mistakes were made. And,
Big mistakes were made.
yeah, mistakes were made. I just want to start off with kind of getting some actual factual information out there, because there was a ton of rumors going around very quickly and a lot of rage, and I just want to start off with what happened at that keynote, because there was the keynote and it was 25 minutes long, and there is a reason for that, and I kind of like you guys to sort of go into what happened there.
Well, first of all, so the keynote only lasted 25 minutes, and it should have been twice that. Everyone can see that things were obviously cut out. The fact that he literally just walked off stage, which means things were cut out for the reason why we either don't know or can't get into. But afterwards, so the CPM went to talk to him and said where was the rest of it? What happened? And he told them and said, but don't worry, I'm going to get all the information in the panel just after. But CCP Rouge thought that the panel afterwards was going to be live on Eve TV, which was the original plan, I assume. But apparently that had changed, and they were like, no, didn't you know that it's not being streamed? And he was pissed is an understatement. So he was extremely angry, and I don't blame him. So his entire plan of getting all the information out completely backfired, and that's the reason why all these rumors started, all the hate started, and basically what happened, more or less.
Yeah, Nova was saying to me that he went behind the stage to go talk to him, and he said, why did you stop? And Rouge was like, yeah, I thought we were doing a stream after this, and then Nova was like, no, and then Rouge proceeded to swear loudly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard him swear that.
Yeah, a lot of people did,
Not happy.
which is, so he must have sworn pretty loudly.
Oh yeah, he was
Pissed.
annoyed.
And yeah, I mean, there was the roundtable after that. I mean, you guys were obviously there. What happened there?
I wasn't at the one afterwards, Denny was.
Right. Well, immediately after that, he was a little bit late. Instead of being straight there, he literally turned up about 2:00. So there was a 20-minute gap between the end of the keynote and the round table. So in that 20 minutes, he found out what was going on, and bless him, he was clearly very annoyed when he came into the keynote. So it was he basically did in that keynote what he was going to do, which was tell everyone all the facts and figures about what was going on. But he was just expecting it to be live streamed, and it's one of those CCP things that they do. That quite often the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
Okay, well, I mean, moving into the actual keynote, or not keynote, the panel itself, what was discussed there?
Well, obviously, primarily it was, I think Genza was recording. I think there's a recording of it somewhere that Genza did. It was either Genza or Zion. But it was basically because of the abruptness of the keynote, and everyone was just going, dude, what the hell was that? Most of it was about him having to say, listen, the Dust is not ending. It is not ending. We're going to carry on with Dust for quite a long time. This was just a project. This was like EVR was last year. If we liked it, and if the response was good, it would be greenlit. And he just wanted everyone's input on it so far. And he was explaining, and they had Sabewing there, they had Rouge there, they had Sabewing there, CCPZ was there, Logibro was there. I mean, they were all hands on deck. And I think Logibro left shortly afterwards then because he realised he had to get onto the forums and just start stamping out some fires. Yeah, he was having to explain it, and it just knocked the wind out of his sails a little bit. This whole, I mean, he quickly recovered and he was explaining. By the time the end of the round table was over, everyone in the room that was there was in no doubt that Dust was not dead. It was carrying on, and that your characters would be getting ported over. It's just unfortunate that it wasn't streamed, so and then the information could have got out there quicker, and basically a lot of the rage would have gone. I know it's, I mean, as has been said already, the whole thing should not have been told at Fanfest. It should have been released prior to Fanfest. The news should have been broken before then, so that the community could then come to terms with it. Well, not come to terms with it, but get over it. Like I said, the entire thing was just a PR disaster. But that is not on the part. None of that. Anyone that was at Fanfest will tell you none of it was JC's fault, because JC and the whole team, in fact, are super cool. They know what they're talking about, and everyone that's there is quite infused by what they want to do with like Legion. But the timing of the announcement was just all wrong, and the CPM told them that as well. So it's just a case of CCP's right hand not doing what the left hand's doing again.
Yep. Okay. So I mean, there's some other stuff I want to talk about as far as just factual information. A lot of people were getting mad at the CPM over this, and talking to them, they have been saying for months apparently that this was the worst way it could have been done, and it turns out they were right. And people were saying,
pretty much.
People were saying that they should have broken NDA and they should have told the community about this. I mean, Aidan, you work in a job that requires you to have an NDA.
Yeah.
Can you quickly go into why that's so
Bullshit.
important?
Yeah. So we said this. Denny and I did a stream yesterday to try and get as much information out as possible. So if I'm going to give once the YouTube video is uploaded, I'll give it to Gimbal. He can compact it to make sure everyone gets the question and stuff, and then Gimbal upload it to his channel. So look out for that. So NDAs are very commonplace in game industries, in technology industries, in every industry in the world, bar food or Asda, things like that. And it is illegal. It is a watertight legal document between you and the company to say, I accept the fact that you will give me access to what you're working on, your trade secrets, everything like that you want me to have access to. I will do with this information, I will do what you want me to do in terms of the NDA with the CPM and CCP. It's advise, give ideas, and give feedback generally. CCP don't have any obligation to listen to the CPM when they're under NDA, but they should, as has happened here. They should have listened. And a lot of people saying, oh, these guys should have broken the NDA for the greater good. Tell us beforehand. Yeah. Every time I see that, I'm just like, you don't understand the severity of what breaking an NDA is.
What is the severity then?
The severity is, so there are generally, in every NDA, there are two severities. There's a hidden one, which applies to every NDA in the world. And there's another one, which is basically, the company can sue you for X amount of money. I don't know what that varies from company to company. I don't know what CCP would do, so I won't go into that. The second one, which is never really mentioned in an NDA, but if you break an NDA, that will become professional public knowledge type thing. So if you have a job to do with NDA and you break someone else's NDA, your job goes. No job, bye. You will just get fired. And you will very, very, very unlikely, almost never, ever get a job in the industry which requires an NDA ever again, because you specifically agreed with the company in question that you will not tell the public or other companies, anyone outside of who you're allowed to, about this information. And you did. And this is an illegal document, so how can any other company trust you with it? If I was an employer and I had someone who's like the best person in the world, you know, the Jesus of game design or whatever, but he broke an NDA, doesn't matter how stupid the NDA was or how little the information was, how can I trust that person? I wouldn't hire them. And that's what happens in the industry. That's the most severe thing could ever happen to your career. Apart from pretty much.
It's basically career death.
It is career suicide. Yeah.
Career suicide. If there's if it's in the pharmaceutical industry, it's in the engineering industry, in the military tech industry, anything like that, you break an NDA, you will never get a job ever again in that field. You will be blacklisted.
Yeah.
I mean, so someone was saying...
Anyone that's there, out in forum land, saying they should have for the greater good. Yeah. Okay, let's see you give up your entire livelihood for the greater good and tell me then if you do it. Yeah.
Although people saying I would do that if I was in the CPM. If you're going to go on the CPM, if you think you want to go on the CPM, you think you can, if you can help in any regard, think you can be better than the CPM 0, go for it. Why not? People may vote for you. People may not vote for you. But if you say you're going to break an NDA now,
you won't get. CCP will just kick you.
CCP will just kick you, and they probably, if you threaten that, they probably wouldn't ever. They just say no, don't you.
So basically, no. if anyone right now who has
said that they would break the NDA in their shoes.
If at any point, they better go check their forum posts. If any one of them says that they would have broken the NDA, do not run for CPM because CCP will just veto you. You're wasting your time right now. You've just killed.
That's a bit of a harsh response. They may veto you if you've been saying that a lot.
No, that's pretty much it because it's happened before.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
But my point was people who say that, and if they did get into the CPM, they'd said that. Either their view would change once they saw the contract.
Yeah.
Or...
So there is something I wanted to go into, last point on this, and that was some people were saying that there are exceptions to NDA, and you were telling me about this yesterday, and I'd just sort of like you to explain what you explained then.
The exceptions to breaching an NDA are extremely rare, and in terms of game design, would never, ever apply. So, basically... everyone knows what WikiLeaks are, whistleblowers. They're basically people who would breach a confidentiality agreement or an NDA for the greater good. So say, this is a very far-fetched thing, say if someone had a cure for cancer, but refused to use, this is what happened in Family Guy or whatever, but refused to use it to get more profit or something like that. If someone had an NDA to not tell people, and they breached it, legally, if it's for the greater good, and obviously there'd be a big trial about this and stuff like that, then it would count as a breach, but it would be counted as a breach with the interest of humans, the livelihood of humans in their mind.
The interest of
but there would be a big court case, and that would take a long time to determine whether or not if you breaching it was the right decision or just not. But because this is to do with video games, this would never apply, ever. Unless EA was building a Death Star, which... yeah.
The other exception you were telling me about was if someone broke a crime, or broke the law even, or committed a crime, I should say.
Okay, yeah, and also if the information that you're NDA'd about, if the information regarded someone committing a crime or breaking the law in any country, not any country, in the countries, I think it's any country, but basically if they break the law, you can go to the police or whatever and say, I'm under NDA, but this person is breaking the law, and my NDA is preventing me from telling the public. So that would be another one that wouldn't count.
Okay. So I want to move on to my next point, which was a lot of people were really upset, and still are. Like, a lot of people have quit and aren't coming back. And a lot of people are still upset about.
Happen.
Well, let me finish. A lot of people have quit, and a lot of people are saying that they should have been informed of the fact that like a possible move to PC was coming like months ago. And
That's
there
what the
was the
CPM
whole
said.
laser focused on PS3 comment last year, and people have spent money since then. I mean, a week
Yeah.
after they said laser focused on PC, BPO packs went off sale, or like something roughly like that. It was very close. It was like the beginning of November.
The last time they said laser focus on PS3 was during Vegas, and I think it was shortly after that because Vegas was when Rouge had just started.
I think it was
So-
about 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, so I think like a month or two after that was when Rouge had the idea to, for this new project now named Project Legion. So at the time when they said laser focused, I'm sure it was true, but now in context, it did seem a really stupid thing to say with the public, and I don't disagree with them. People spending money. The game isn't going anywhere, so spending money is up until like the last few events. I don't have a problem with. The problem is like the last few SP events where they've been selling boosters and selling Omega boosters and doing like the Origin pack sale and stuff like that. Like we're coming right up to Fanfest when the player base didn't know about this Project Legion thing. That I disagree with. Like I bought a few and I only bought like 1 or 2 boosters, so I'm personally not pissed with that, but I know that a lot of people bought lots of Omega boosters and passive boosters and things like this, and they weren't informed. And if they are pissed, I completely agree with you. You should have known, should have been told about this.
They should have been able to make an informed decision.
Yes, yeah, basically that. And if CCP listened to the CPM and got the Project Legion out months beforehand or whatever, then this would have been different. And I think this was just CSP marketing, the marketing section, just acting in a dumb way.
Again.
Yeah. I think like the next CPM should be able to talk to marketing and stuff like that. So if marketing have an idea, then with what they're going to do, then the CPM should be able to at least if veto or like tell them like why is this a stupid idea, because in this case it was quite severe of how people are pissed off, and they have every right to be in this regard.
I mean, from a personal standpoint, now that I've had a chance to like look at all the facts and absorb all the information, I'm okay with how everything's going to go in the future. I'm okay with Dust being the game that we play for a few more years, or however long it takes to develop Legion, and then it's still existing for however long it does after Legion comes out, until maybe like a PS4 version or something like that.
Yeah.
I do, however, think that people have a right to get a refund if they want to, in exchange for losing their character. Like, I actually think that CCP should come out and say, if you want a refund, like, we're going to do a roadmap, we're going to say, this is what we're doing with Dust, we'll take your ideas on board, and if you still want a refund after that, then you can have it. But you will lose your character and all your assets.
I think a lot of people are saying they're saying they're doing the refunds, and Sony has a 90-day refund, not a guarantee, but like a policy. And I think if people do feel they were cheated for this event bit, then getting their refund is entirely reasonable, because they didn't have all the information. For people saying like they want an entire refund and stuff, I'm not really.
At the very
I'm on
least,
the fence, I'm on the fence about it.
I think it should go back to at least like Vegas, because that's around the time that they said the BPO packs are coming off sale. You have this long left to buy them, because that does come off as a cash grab.
But that doesn't really have anything to do with Legion. Legion wasn't even thought of while the BPOs were coming off sale. So I'd say that has nothing to do with it.
I mean, that's just my personal opinion. That's
Yeah.
how long I think that they should go back, or how far they should go back to offer refunds.
Mm.
And it's mostly just a sign of good faith than anything else, because I know a lot of people who are so angry about it that they are boycotting CCP completely. They're going to not cover Valkyrie, for example. They're going to actively warn people away from CCP games. I think as a business decision, it makes sense.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, while I completely understand those people are angry, I think it's a small enough group of people that it's worth, the benefits for CCP outweigh the loss.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and again, that would be a business decision for CCP legal department. I can't speak for anyone in the actual dev teams or anything like that, but I mean, it's a tricky one. I mean, personally, my own personal opinion is I'm completely fine with everything. Now that I know my character is going to be ported over, which was made clear actually after the keynote in the round table, I've no real problem at all with it at all. So that's just me personally. The game was going to go to PC at some point regardless. It was going to go to next gen regardless. So I bought the PS3 knowing that it was eventually going to go to either PS4 or PC or even Xbox One. It was going to go there eventually because they were talking about a 10-year. They were talking about it having a dust monument in 10 years' time in Reykjavik next to the E1. And the notion, just if anyone there was genuinely thinking that PS3 was ever going to be able to support this game for the next 14 years,
Well,
yeah.
I don't think that, but I mean, they were kind of, and I understand the whole PS4 not saying anything because it's a prototype, and Sony can't confirm it for the PS4 until it's actually a product.
Yeah. But if we look at what we're presented with, Valkyrie's going to PS4 as well as PC. As Denny was saying, they had the Project Morpheus tests at FanFest, so you could play Valkyrie on Oculus Rift, or you could do a raffle to do it on Project Morpheus, and every Project Morpheus kit in existence that Sony owned was at FanFest. So the relationship between CCP and Sony is outstanding.
Very strong.
Yeah.
Very strong. I only met them briefly, the Sony guys, but they were just walking around FanFest with this huge grin on their face. They were just counting how many PS4s and Morpheuses this game is going to sell for them. That means they'd already realised they'd just made their next 4 Christmas bonuses. That's what the relationship with Sony is right now. And up until they were still negotiating up until Saturday morning, I think, and because of the whole keynote debacle, and whether or not because the CCP, I think, were thinking that they were going to have to come up with some way, a third-party way of getting all the information from your Dust character to get put into the Legion, but Sony have already told us, no, we'll give you the information. You can have the entire database. So, I mean, that's just an indication of the strength of the working relationship between Sony and CCP.
Yeah.
CCP and Sony have learnt an awful lot from Dust, particularly the speedy monthly cycle period after Uprising. That was as big a learning curve for Sony as it was for anyone else, because they were doing stuff that console companies have never had to do before, and then pulling it off. So people might want to just in their mind want to write off Dust, but Sony and CCP certainly don't, because of the technical skills that they have learned as a result of the game.
Okay, before we move on to something like another topic, I just want to get Jackal's thoughts on all this. We're about 25 minutes in and he hasn't really said anything. I mean, what do you think about, well, I guess we'll start with the whole refund thing? Because I know a bunch of TESOL guys have left, although not that many.
A lot of our console-only guys have given up. I don't know if they've actually biomassed their characters or sought refunds or anything like that. The hope of a console port has kept a lot of them in at the moment. So, but obviously I let Charlie and Delta and Denny do a lot of the talking because I wasn't at Fanfest. They heard a lot of the stuff that I didn't hear. I was watching the stream and I saw pretty much the nuclear explosion go off live on the forums. So I was looking at it from the other end of the world, in real time, watching virtually the nuke go off on the forums. So I was there trying to talk to everyone there on the forums and in game and things like that. Those guys were there. They knew what was going on. We didn't, unfortunately. As I said, Logibro left and tried to put out fires on the forums. I was there already trying to help put out fires and counsel people to actually wait and listen. So I just let them take the lead on actually informing everyone as to what happened. I was quite curious myself as well, of course.
But what was like the sort of general mood you got inside your Core Band Alliance?
Quite apathetic at first. Very down, pissed off. As you can imagine, most of the people who weren't at Fanfest felt very much similar ways. We had this really short keynote, and I know the reasons behind it. I know what all the story behind it. It was really short keynote that it sort of sidelined us from the start. So in our opinion, anyway, in our mind, in what we saw, that's all we saw. We sort of get sidelined straight from the start, and then they talked about this brand new Legion on PC. So it was a very bittersweet moment for a lot of us. A lot of us play PC as well, so it doesn't really affect us a lot. But a lot of the console-only guys got really angry about it.
Oh yeah, don't get us wrong. We perfectly understood what was going on.
Yeah.
On the forums when we hit at FanFest, but it was difficult because I said throughout the last week that if every single person on the forums could have 5 minutes with JC, the CCP Rouge, all of their concerns would just melt away.
Yeah.
The guy gets it.
Yeah.
He's got
He's head firmly on his shoulder.
Unfortunately, a lot of us on the other side of the world, or the guys who were watching the stream, didn't get that 5 minutes. I mean, we would have loved to, I'm sure. Just a 5-minute segment of him talking to us like he did to you guys at the round table or something like that would have been absolutely brilliant. Obviously, he was tied up doing other stuff, so it wasn't available to us. So what we got was a very short, truncated announcement of Eve Legion and nothing about Dust until later on. And obviously, to a lot of us, not going to the round tables and the Q&As afterwards and stuff like that, a lot of it felt like a knee-jerk reaction to posts we put up, the nuclear explosion on the forums, the mass biomassing, things like that. It all felt like a knee-jerk reaction. I know it wasn't, but it felt like it because we hadn't seen the continue on of the whole thing. So speaking from the viewpoint of someone who wasn't at FanFest to get the whole story, the little bit of story we got really didn't sell us on anything to do with Legion at first.
Yeah.
Perfectly understandable, which is why Charlie and myself we discussed it at FanFest on the Saturday that we said as soon as we both get back, we're going to have to do a talk till they drop Q&A, which is what we did yesterday. And we've been doing this as well. So, I mean, I'm prepared to carry on doing this for the rest of the week, so I've got the whole week off.
Yeah, I mean, there's another Dust podcast that came up, and they did their first episode yesterday. I don't know, like, time zones make it kind of weird, because it would have been like 2 days ago. Yeah,
Biomass was the podcast, run by Pokey and Soraya Zell.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to the first episode, and I actually really liked the first 50 minutes, and then some EVE player started basically lying about the CPM. Or I guess you could say it was more like misinformed opinions about them.
Yeah.
But I mean, other than that, and like even they were saying, yeah, we probably should have stepped in and like told him to shut up because he's saying a bunch of stuff that isn't actually true.
But you have to
like,
understand that guy's pretty much the same on his own show Podside as he was there. They were there for moral support and they stepped in and sort of turned it into a Podside fiasco. Podside's great, but it does have a tendency to do that sort of thing.
Mm.
But I would definitely recommend people to go check Biomass out because I don't do boots on the ground as much as I should, and I've been like I've had real life stuff come up and I can't do it every week. And it is nice to have actually to be able to listen to a podcast about Dust because I haven't been able to do that because no one else has done one, and I think Boots on the Ground might have been slightly responsible for that. So it is nice to hear like have something to listen to every week about Dust. And it's good. Like I really enjoyed the first 50 minutes up until what's his face started blathering about the CPM.
Who was it exactly? That was Black.
Some
it was Kukin.
player.
Well, right.
I don't want to name names, but it was just, and like I actually.
But that's what I'll name him for you.
Well, whatever. People might call me biased. I don't know. Anyway, it's good, and you should go listen to it. And I hope they continue to do it because I really enjoyed listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently they're getting a bunch of CPM guys on. And actually, that is a thing I will say is that Logibro and Saberwing have both said, yeah, like we want to come on Boots on the Ground. So I'll be talking to them at some point. I don't know when, and I'm going to try and get Rouge on. Or maybe, oh, sorry, I've got hiccups.
Rouge would be up for it, but he's going to be busy for the next couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm talking, like, maybe in a month. Or, like, maybe Praetorian, or maybe Z. Z seems like a cool guy.
Z is just, like, glacial cool. I mean,
He's the man with the plan.
he is the man with a plan. And anyone that's interested, which should be everyone, go to either their Twitch stream, I don't know if it's on their Twitch or if it's on their YouTube channel yet, but go to
It'll be under a paywall right now. The Twitch channel's under a paywall.
It'll be on YouTube then shortly, so.
Yeah.
But when it comes on YouTube, watch Z's progression in Dust 514, because you're just going to go, oh Christ, that's what it should have been like since day one.
I mean, can we talk about that actually? Because I have a bunch of thoughts on it, and
We'll let Denny do this one because Denny paid a bit more attention than me. I was preoccupied with trying to help Ben and Saberwing and GM Scotsman try and calm the forums down and failed miserably.
Yeah, I felt it was my because I'm not a forum warrior, and I felt I could do better by actually paying attention to what was being said.
All right. So what did he say?
Well, basically, the main idea was that it was going to be like. It's everything that everyone's been wanting to do on the forums. They've got tier side, everything has been condensed into this simple pattern. They've now changed it to a role-based system, so that you can choose what you want to be, and it'll show you what is best for that role. But that's for a new starter. But at the same time, a veteran can go into different parts of the tree to unlock other things, and once you've unlocked that thing, you're entirely free to use it for whatever fit you want to use. Now, as it comes to the suits themselves, their main thinking at the moment is just to have one suit. The suit will not be destroyed once you bought it. The modules and everything else will be, but the suit will remain yours, and that suit will gather stats and data throughout its career. Data and stat that you can then view. And that stat and data will also be used for the matchmaking as well. The matchmaking is going to be meta-based, which is something that I know that I've been pushing for a long time. So basically, everything's got a meta level. The game then adds up the total amount of meta level in the game that your suit uses and puts you in an appropriate matchmaking queue based on that level. So if you want to go the full proto stomp, you're only going to go against people who are proto stomping. Okay.
Now, can I quickly ask a question here though? Because I've had games that have done similar sorts of matchmaking based on the gear you're using or what you've got equipped and stuff like that. Being an Australian, generally we play in very dead time zones for most gaming things. You know, we only make up about 5 to 10% of the gaming population in most games.
Yeah.
That sort of matchmaking system is great as long as it has a expanding threshold. If it doesn't find a matchmaking system within a certain time frame, it'll actually expand the threshold. Is that something that's planned, or is it going to be a very, this is what you get, this is your threshold, and you won't get a match outside of that threshold?
Yeah, sorry, sorry for putting it. Yeah, the meta threshold is just the basis of the matchmaking. It'll take in other things into account as well. So it'll take in age of character, the amount of SP you've gained, whether or not it'll take into account ISK efficiency. So if there's a whole slew of things that are going to be taken into account. But on a most basic and understandable level, matchmaking is going to be based on meta. So if you want to go all proto, but it's pushing you into the full proto level, you'll just knock down a couple of modules to the advanced stuff. And while we're on it, they're not going to have standard and advanced and prototype anymore. Okay, they're just going to have different upgrade levels for each one. So you'd have for instance, this is just them spitballing. So it's not definite. So every particular weapon will have a base level. Okay, it's just a question of your upgrade skill will then increase the output of that weapon. Okay, so so that's kind of what they're looking for. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
I mean, I can interject here. There is some stuff I do remember. So there's a couple of things I just want to mention.
Watch it.
Yeah, there's a few things I want to mention which I do remember off like the top of my head, and one of them was that like the matchmaking thing is all cool and all that, but there is it's separate to like the proper full-on sandbox mode that they're putting in.
Yeah. The sandbox mode is their version of PvE. So they were talking about so for instance, you could go out and salvage a map, but the actual map you would be salvaging would be one that's after a proper PvP battle. So this would be stuff that people have lost in the battle that you'd be salvaging. But the actual salvage maps would be open to anyone, so you could meet someone there, and it'd be up to you because there'll be rogue drones there trying to get the salvage themselves. So it'd be up to them whether or not you work together or you kill each other first before taking on the rogues, before we take on the rogue drones.
So it's like DayZ. It's a DayZ clone without zombies, which I don't think anyone has done yet.
Yeah. So
yeah, sorry, just another clarification question.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, I know they may not have covered it completely in the Fanfest event, but if you're on a map doing a salvage or whatever, doing this, going around salvaging a battle, what happens if the battle starts on that map while you're there? Does it immediately phase over to the PvP full battle out mode, or does it exist as two separate instances?
Yeah, they didn't go too much into detail, but I would imagine it would be a separate instance, but based on a genuine PvP battle that happened in the public contracts. So I don't know how long that detail, how much that salvage would stay in mind. It'd be like, because obviously all salvage loot drops in games like World of Warcraft disappear after a while. So it might be just a separate instance that's there for a little while and then disappear after 5-10 minutes or something like that. But once someone's in, it takes however long it takes.
I would assume salvage would appear as well without a battle, because obviously you'd want to have all maps salvageable to some extent, whether straight after a battle would probably be more richly rewarding, whereas something that hasn't been PvE'd for a month might have done some salvage.
Like the idea of the PvE thing is you scan the New Eden for planets which have salvage or rogue drones or both, and you get dropped there on your own or maybe with a squad, and you go around and you only see like the map of like a circle around you or something like that is how I understand it, and then you get to use the scanner to find other places.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be like out in the wilderness, they're not in a built-up area. So I think it will be some of the PvE modes at least will be away from the bases where PvP happens anyway.
Yeah,
that's my understanding of it as it stands now.
It's a very interesting concept. We're probably not doing it at all justice until you've seen the actual progression.
I imagine a lot of it's actually still up in the air.
Oh yeah, a lot of it is. I mean, salvage, for instance, is Z's basis for the player market and in the game. So that's how you'll be earning your risk. You can sell this salvage. So, you know, a lot of it is all still up in the air. But from what he already said, and then you couple that with what the CPM say they've seen but can't talk about in terms of the progression, it's very, very exciting. The CPM are all thrilled with what Z has come up with. And Z has worked with JC before. They've worked for 6 years. Z was one of JC's first recruits for the game. He persuaded him to come over, and he's worked with him for 6 years. So they have a very back and forth relationship. Yeah. They know, they know exactly what they're doing. You know, Rouge can leave Julian to do something else, knowing it's going to get done. That sort of thing. So there's a definite trust between them.
Okay. I mean, looking at the progression system, though, there are some problems I have with it. And I've been vocal. I immediately talked to Kane, once I'd calmed down about the whole... Once I knew our Dust characters were getting transferred and all that, after the drama.
Yeah.
I immediately looked back at what he'd been talking about, and I'll go and watch the video again at some point. Probably as soon as it comes up on YouTube, and I will give him some more feedback. But for now, my initial feedback is... So, people here have played Diablo 3, right? I know Iden has.
Yeah, I have. I just haven't muted.
Played it briefly.
Okay, in that, the way the skill system worked was you had 6 skill slots. And each skill, by default, there was a group of skills that you could put into each one, and those were different skills, and it was locked to that. However, if you went into the options, you could untick a box or tick a box, and it would let you put any skill in any of the skill slots, so you can do whatever you want. But there was a basic mode, which meant that you would have a decent mix of skills that sort of worked well together.
Yeah.
And the way I'm looking at things like weapon progression being tied to suits and stuff like that,
I can answer that to a little degree.
I mean, I just want to finish my point.
Sorry.
I wish there was a separate mode for people who know what they're doing, so that you don't have to go and skill through an entire suit just to get a weapon.
That was answered. I asked this question in the panel to do with more standing in the box for Dust 514. I asked him this, and the recording is up on the Reddit now. Zion Shad recorded it on his iPad or whatever. And I asked, and he said, and CCP said, Z said, I agree with you that you shouldn't have to spec halfway up a suit tree that you don't want to use just to get a weapon. So, say if you're an assault player and you want to get a mass driver from a Logi, which is the example I used. So he's thinking about a wildcard type system, which will apply once per different suit tree, which will allow you to skill into one item or one weapon without having to go up the tree. And then I think you can upgrade it as well, because once you've unlocked that node, you can go up the child nodes and stuff. So, and you can do that once per tree or something, which I think is a cool, it's not ideal compared to the system we have now, where you can literally spec into what you want when you want, more or less. But it's a good alternative at the moment.
I don't know. I mean, that even
with what we know,
even that seems very much like a band-aid on an open wound. It seems like it's trying to fix a broken system as opposed to having a better system in the first place. And
yeah, well, it's difficult because you got to try and divorce your mind from what we've already got in the tree. This would be completely different.
I know, but even so, I can think of a lot of situations where it would make sense to quickly want to change what weapon you're using on a suit depending on what people are running, the standards, compositions that people use on the battleground, for example. If a weapon suddenly becomes very strong against that, you're going to want people to spec into that weapon quickly. and it creates this issue where new players are going to really struggle, because if you have a situation where Caldari Scout's best options at that time are like a nanite injector, a Galente shotgun, and a Minmatar sidearm, just as an example, new players are going to really struggle because they have to go through and spec up each different tree just to get that outfit, and they're not going to be able to optimize very quickly to like what's going on, like not even in like a sense of game balance, but just in a sense of like what the current meta of the game is and what people are running. And I think that limiting people's freedom,
Well, I mean, like I said,
limiting people's freedom to choose will create issues. And I'm very much, I can agree with the fact that having that as a kind of basic mode so that people can go through and not screw up their skill trees the first time round, but there will come a point where it will become very important to be able to change how you're going to play your class, and using other races' weapons and all that stuff is going to be really important.
yeah, but it's important to say that the current thinking on the new progression skill tree is that it will tell you and inform you of what you need to unlock to get to a particular thing for a start. So that's going to help a lot. So if you're like, say, if you want the mass driver, it'll tell you what you need to unlock to do it. So that's going to help a lot with the SP expenditure. And the actual progression presentation at ZZ before the round table on it, I had Keldon Ravan sat next to me, and obviously he was the CEO of Eve University, but he's also works for Sony. He's currently working on the zombie game that Sony are doing that's similar to DayZ, H1Z1 or whatever it's called. And he worked on PlanetSide 2 as well. And he was very, very impressed with the work that Z was presenting. He was, extremely impressed. So, oh great, they've got a guy that actually knows what they're talking about. So, like I said, I'm not the balance guy. I'm really not, and I am the mechanics guy to a certain degree in terms of court mechanics and what have you. But from what I saw, I was very impressed with it, and I didn't have to. It was very simple to understand. I'm trying to remember a lot of it, but I think the Brenniving's killed a few brain cells since then. So, yeah, but I'm happy with it at the moment, but it does need a little bit of work. But that's what telling us about Legion is all about now. We can now have a very real influence on this game as it's being developed.
Okay. Jackal, your thoughts?
I actually echo your thoughts to an extent. As I said, I wasn't there, so I didn't get to see the whole progression aspect of it. I saw part of the keynote, but unfortunately it was quite late in the evening for me, so I couldn't watch it all. I'll probably watch it as soon as it comes up on YouTube, so I can catch up and brush up and whatnot. But limiting the choices did seem like a back step from what I understood. Obviously, also being on this end, watching the forums as well, a lot of them did come down with it's just going to be a COD copy or a Battlefield copy because they're bringing it down to the suit is your class virtual thing. I can see it needs more work, and as I said, without all the information on it, which unfortunately at the moment I can't get, it's not going to be possible to easily make a judgment on it. But I'm all with you about not limiting choices as much as it seemed to at the start of the progression thing. But if they've got ways of developing a system that allows us the flexibility without the flavor of the month style, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, like, flavor of the month is always going to happen regardless of balance, just because people will use different suits, and then that will become the dominant strategy, and then people will counter that. And that's just kind of how competitive games work. Like, you look at like fighting games, like certain ways of playing, certain new techniques come up, and people try and figure out how to counter them, and it's just like kind of how things work, and I think you could have a perfectly balanced game, but it will still change, and that's a sign of a good game, is that a game that's balanced will change the more people play it.
Perfect imbalance. I think that term is what you're going for.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we got 10 minutes. I kind of don't want to keep this too long. I just want to make sure it's like short and to the point. I guess the last thing is like, what's Dust's future? From what I could gather, the idea was they want to get people's feedback on what they should do next.
Well, are you talking about Dust on the PS3?
Dust on the PS3.
Right. Well, for instance, Atlee made it clear on a couple of the keynotes that there were a lot of technical problems that they had come across that they cannot get around without a major rewrite of the game's engine. Which, of course, if they're going to do that, they might as well do it on Legion and get it right in an easier and quicker format. So, for instance, things like a player market, the kind of free-roaming player market that we were all envisaging, that's going to be next to impossible currently. He was very blunt about that. They've tried and they can't do it. He hasn't ruled out direct player trading though. I think there was a tweet earlier on today as well that said they were going to still be looking at that. But it'll probably come as a consequence of development on Legion. Anything that they can do on Legion that they are doing, and they find that it would be not very difficult at all to get onto the PS3 version, they will do. There is some content still to come. For instance, the remaining heavy weapons, they're to come. They're to come in Dust 514. There's the PC changes that they've been working on with Kane a lot on, and the rest of the CPM. They're to come at some point. So, I mean, there is a lot more stuff they can do. And what we were bringing up, actually, and I think it was in the Sandbox round table, is that we were saying stuff like, well, we've got the opportunity here now to use Dust 514 as a test bed for certain things. So we're talking to Atlee about perhaps enabling team deploy and faction warfare to see how that would work. And then they'd have hard data for their matchmaking for Legion. And they were, talking about doing stuff they wouldn't be prepared to do normally, but because they've got this opportunity, they might do if they had enough positive feedback, So Dust isn't dead yet by a long shot, and there's stuff that's coming up. But if you're looking for things like a massive amount of PvE to turn up in it, that's unlikely to happen. Basically because they're going to be focused on Legion in order to get all that done. The more focused they are on Legion right now, the quicker it's going to get done, to the point where we'll have the game we should have had 2 years ago.
I mean, it's not necessarily that it's them needing to focus on Legion either. It's some stuff they just can't get it done.
Yeah, they just cannot get it done on the PS3. So there's really no point expending energy trying to do it. And they were very blunt with this. Like I say, the player market is one of them. The PvE is the other.
I'd be primarily expecting assets and mechanics around assets to come down, because obviously they're going to be 3D model for Legion. Like they said, they have the heavy weapons. Obviously, maybe a vehicle parity. All those mechanics are still in.
Yeah, there's things like that.
So those can sort of come down.
Things like that can still be done. For instance, they could come up with they could come up with the vehicle types in Legion that were missing, and then just basically use less polygons and port it down to the PS3.
I mean, there were a couple of examples, because there was an art panel as well, which didn't get streamed. I know Ribwitch was there, and they were showing off stuff like the precision rifle was an example of a weapon.
Yeah, the Mimitar precision rifle.
Which is, I think that's this sniper rifle, right?
Yeah, that's their sniper rifle. And actually, although I was walking around with a Nerf gun for all the Fanfest in my costume, it did actually remind me of the Nerf long-shot sniper rifle that I've got hanging above me right now. which I was going to take to Fanfest, but I couldn't fit in the suitcase. So,
And the other example I saw was the Amar dropship was apparently in the trailer that they showed
yes.
off.
yeah. And actually, going back to the Prophecy trailer, that's the first time they've actually shown dust bunnies boarding anything. So, they've always hinted at that, but this is the first time that they've sort of acknowledged that could be a possibility in one of their cinematics.
To be fair,
I have to admit that Prophecy trailer gave me a bit of a nerdgasm when I saw it.
yeah, it was a rad trailer.
Yeah,
Although I just
good.
wanted to make the point that, 1.5 years ago, there was a trailer that showed PvE, and we don't have that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm kind of a bit skeptical about anything I see in the
But
trailer.
that PvE was something that was going to that they thought they could do on a PS3. I mean, they genuinely did think that they could do a lot of this, all of it, on the PS3, and it's just through a series of bad design decisions and what have you that they realise that they can't. Not to the extent that we envisage and what they want. So, it's in many ways. Some people have called it cowardly. I call it very brave. I mean, this was a very brave decision by JC. Very radical. And as I understand it, he actually told the CPM before he told anyone else. He bounced the idea off them. And after the initial, jaw-dropping, scraping themselves off the ceiling moment, he managed to sell them on the vision that he wanted to do. So that's as I understand the situation. So he just kept, So
with it all coming to the x86 systems, I think the possibility of what we saw in that trailer actually happening is actually a lot closer than it would be with the PS3. It may not be exact. I'm fairly certain it probably won't be exact. Us existing in the same space as Eve at the same time with those dropships and stuff like that probably won't happen exactly that way. But the ideal behind it, having us fight on stations to control stations, to control gates or whatever, because that was a gate in the Prophecy trailer. I'm not sure what the gate was for or what it did, but it was a gate.
Yeah,
so
we don't know exactly either. That was because that's part of their vision for Eve. That the Eve, the eggers can start making their own gates, and also
Eve talk.
I
Whatever.
know. Sorry, but
either way, the ideal behind it, us being able to directly influence Eve, and Valkyrie even being able to influence Eve, and vice versa, Eve being able to influence us and influence Valkyrie, and Valkyrie being able to influence us. Even I'm not sure how much the interplay will be. It probably won't be exactly like the trailer. Nothing ever is. It would be nice, but it's not going to be.
Yeah.
But now that we're moving on to Legion with a PC x86 system platform, the possibility of that sort of interaction happening is a lot closer there than it would have ever been with the PS3, unfortunately.
It was never going to happen on the PS3, and it pains me to say that as a console player, but it was never going to happen.
I think most of the community, even the console-only players, expected it would never happen on the PS3, but most of them went into the stream with the ideal that, okay, they're going to announce a port to the PS4. Unfortunately, they didn't. They announced a port to the PC,
which
and
is a PS4.
It is a PS4. I understand the architecture is the same. All the techie stuff I know, but when it comes to console gamers who like to sit back in lounge rooms or whatever, I'm sure you like to sit back in the lounge room more often. You sit at a computer screen.
Yeah. Even my PC is hooked up to my big TV.
Exactly, and these guys don't like to get up close to a PC for hours a day, but they'll sit back on the couch or sit on a beanbag or something in front of the TV and play consoles all day. Yeah. I know a lot of guys who won't buy a PC for Legion. They'll wait for the PS4 port instead.
I'm wondering if this is because like how Valkyrie is the big title for Oculus Rift and VR headsets, I wonder if this is going to be the game that makes the Steam box relevant.
I don't know.
It's the flagship game for the Steam box. I don't know. It's just a funny thought.
I don't know, because Sony is so in love with CCP with Valkyrie right now. I mean, they'd be prepared to have their digital babies. obviously Sony had come up with this idea of their Morpheus as a result of all the interest in the Oculus Rift. Probably just saw it as a business opportunity because they felt there was a market that was beginning to open up here. But only because of the technology itself. And then suddenly Valkyrie comes from nowhere and just tells everyone this is the future. And anyone that'll tell you that played Valkyrie at Fanfest, I mean, it was the single most. It's very difficult to describe in terms of a gamer. I've been playing I'm 42 years old. I've been playing computer games since you had to program them on a ZX80. So it's a bit like the change in terms of the change in the whole landscape of gaming. It's like when sound came into films. That's how big a thing it is. You know, it's very difficult to put into words just how epoch-making the Oculus Rift and Valkyrie is. You know, it just takes things to a whole new level. So, you know, and it's nice to know that the Eve universe, in some way, is going to be at the forefront of that. And also, I mean, in the CCP Presents thing, they announced another reason why they moved to the PC first is that your Dust character will be consistent between Valkyrie and Eve. So if you want to start playing either of those two games, you can use your Dust name. So there'll be.
Now I had a question about that, but they didn't answer it when on the thing I saw. Obviously, a lot of us do play Eve as well as Dust at this point in time. You know, I've got my Eve character as well as my Dust character. If I wanted to merge those, since I've merge them into the same account, would that be possible to do that? Like, say, take my Eve character, Hunter Blake, and actually turn him into the Black Jackal?
I don't know. That'd be something that could be brought up on the forums a lot. I mean, you could. What you mean? So for instance, Kevil's my Merc name. So you mean move over all my skill points and all my stuff to Denny, and then use
pretty much. You know, you're paying a subscription, of course, and stuff like that.
Well, that could be easy.
You pay a subscription for the thing, but you take what is currently exists on Eve.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. You take your Dust Merc that you've established and turn him into your Eve character, and take the progression you've done in Dust, which is put over to Legion, and put it into your Eve character. You know, vice versa. It can go either way, or even into Valkyrie as well, because then you'll have the complete package. You may use 3 different clients to use that character.
Yeah. Well, that's. I mean, in terms of the technology that they just demonstrated that they were showing a mock-up of, I mean, it wasn't working technology, but it was what the CTO, I forget his name now, the weird-looking guy that I'm sure CCP looking as stellar.
I'm sure he'll appreciate being called that.
The weird.
Well, I know, but he just reminds me of a Dr. Evil with hair. So,
All right. Well, like, I mean, I just want to say I would really love to not be called Starfire anymore.
well, exactly.
My Eve character is called Gimbal Revo, which is why my Dust character. Actually, my initial main for Dust was David Revo because my first name's David.
Yeah.
And Starfire just happened to be the character that I put a BPO on that I liked.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I think it was the right role that I picked, and I wanted all my characters from Beta to be in there.
Yeah. I mean, in terms, as I understand it right now, if you, for instance, I've got Denny Fleetfoot in Eve, if he fired up Legion, he would have no skill points at all in Legion. He'd still have all his skill points in Eve, but he'd have to start from scratch in Legion. And the same with Valkyrie, he'd have to start from scratch in Valkyrie.
You see, that's what I'm trying to say is,
So, I understand what you're saying. So the option of being able to take all the SP and stuff from Kival and use all his progression on Denny's character would be quite interesting. I'd be interested in that. I would like that.
It would also encourage people to actually play
Yeah.
Eve as well, stuff like that. If you've set up a trial Eve account and it's run out, obviously, because you couldn't get progression or something like that, and then suddenly you've got your Dust character on Legion.
Yeah.
Suddenly you can go, okay, well, that old trial account, I'll activate it, I'll subscribe, and I'll transfer all the skill points I got there, so you won't be starting completely fresh in Eve if you want to play Eve.
Yeah, perhaps.
And
Yeah.
vice versa in Valkyrie.
Yeah, so I mean that's an idea that they can do, and if it's going to be something that encourages uptake of the whole concept, then I'm sure they'll think of some way of doing it. But these are the kind of things that can be suggested now in the forums to CCP directly while they're actually making the game.
On that note, actually, I'd just like to say Saberwing tweeted, and apparently there is a Legion forum coming. Like, once the green light hits, there'll be a Legion forum. And I think that'll be a joint forum. I'm not entirely sure.
I'm sure it will be. It'd probably be just a forum. It'd just be a separate forum within the PSN. Again, Sony love CCP. So, I mean, Sony would be quite happy for them to have a separate forum in the Dust forums for Legion. I mean, they'd allow it. Because obviously the people that play Dust are the guys that are going to be the ones that are forming the creation of Legion, and it's going to be looking Sony's favour in particular because eventually, hopefully, right now I would say I'm probably about 95% certain that it's going to end up on PS4 at some point. Couldn't give you a time frame, don't ask, but in my gut feeling, it's what they're aiming for, but they just don't want to say it in case they don't want to fall the same thing that they've had before, where they make promises that they don't keep. So that's why they're not telling you.
I guess
my gut feeling is.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I was just going to say, like, we've gone past the hour mark and I don't particularly enjoy uploading long episodes.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to end on, hopefully they make the progression system go across smoothly. That was another worry I had, was that what's going to happen to my BPOs, what's going to happen to my ISK. I mean, oh my god, if you're a really smart EVE player right now, invest in Dust ISK. I will say that now, because there's never been a better time to buy Dust ISK. And I'm not just saying that. I'm actually like, I would invest if I could.
I personally wouldn't. So,
okay.
Like I say, that's not for me with any form of information that's being dropped. But the simple fact of the matter is, the price parity between the games is just ridiculous. There's no, a tank in Dust costs the same as a cruiser.
The thing is, the exchange rate's changed completely. Like, pretty much overnight, it's gone from, like, Dust ISK being worth more than EVISK to the other way around. I've heard people trying to sell and buy, like, Dust ISK for, like, a fraction of the amount of, like, it's like in EVISK. Like, you're talking like 5 Dust ISK to every, like, 1 EVISK or something like that. It's kind of ridiculous right now. So if you like playing it fast and loose with your money, and it's probably a better investment than, like... God, I sound like such a scammer right now.
Yeah, I was wondering that.
Right, I'll stop then.
But I personally wouldn't.
One thing I will say, though, is it's worth making a Dust character now. Like, if you have a friend with a PlayStation, go make yourself a PlayStation account, make a Dust character, and activate his passive SP. Because that will actually likely be a way to get a head start. And I'm actually going to do a video on that, like, separately. And then I'm going to, like, try and get a ton of people to hit my recruitment link.
But, conversely, I would also say, because I had obviously this edges a little bit towards EVE Talk, but I had a few eggers quite excited about the fact that they can play Legion. We haven't spoken about briefly that they are very excited about the fact that they can now play Legion on PC. And people were talking to me about joining D-Uni. And I said, I would hold off until you know exactly what's going on about the character integration, because I'm sure they would prefer to use their own name in Legion, and they don't have the option yet. Until I know, for instance, like the suggestion we made earlier about moving your Dust character over to your EVA character's Legion account, I would hold off.
I mean, like, the thing is, though, there's nothing to lose by making a Dust account because it's free.
You can create a character online. You don't need a PS3. So
yeah. I mean, I don't know. They may turn off the automatic passive SP if people like suddenly start flooding the website and then never playing on their characters.
Well, EVE players are speculative. They like doing stuff like that. So I'm sure CCP.
But it's not exactly hard to go around to a friend who has a PS3 and like activate it through them. But anyway, we've been going for about 70 minutes now. I just want to leave it on the note that Dust isn't dead. Like, the game is still going to be here. Legion is quite a far way away. I mean, they were showing off a tech demo.
I would say Legion's probably between.
Well, it wasn't a tech demo. It was a prototype. Like a tech demo is something that was done done beforehand and is polished. Whereas this wasn't polished. This was like the demo was unstable. Was extremely the prototype was really unstable. So, and I think they were working on it beforehand, like up until the keynote to get it to work. Same with Valkyrie.
Okay, but even so, like, it's still a while away. They still have I think most of the team are still working on Dust at the moment.
I thought it was the same amount of people, because the people working on Legion are still doing stuff for Dust, is my understanding.
Because there's a lot of guys that have a very specific skill set that they can't really pull away from one project to another. So they're sort of like flitting between the two. But it's not a skeleton crew working on Dust. They assured us of that. But obviously they couldn't give us numbers because they're still waiting for the green light. You see, once they get the green light proper, then JC, as the executive producer, can then start allocating his resources as and when he sees need for it. So at the moment it's a little bit up in the air. I'm sure because they want to be clear about it, we'll get some clearer ideas once the green light is given.
Yeah.
And if not, CPM will want to know as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, the one other thing as well is, what this means is that, like, they were trying to do a lot of really hard-to-do things on the PS3, and now that they can just say, like, we can't do this, we're going to do it on Legion, hopefully they'll start focusing on features in the game that, like, they can pull off more easily, and pay more attention to doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean,
because
for instance,
faction warfare is, like, it needs some changes to happen.
Yeah. I mean, they have to do it. I mean, for instance, the demo that we got shown at the keynote, from my understanding, that particular demo was thrown together in 2 weeks. That's what they can do in 2 weeks on the PC. So,
I'm very excited for the development of Legion. As I said earlier in the cast, the fact that all my wild ideas I posted on the forums aren't quite so wild now there anymore.
No.
Okay, but we'll leave it on the note that Dust has still got a future ahead of it. Legion, we have to wait for the actual green light. We have to wait and see what Rouge comes out with. Like, they need a roadmap at some point, and hopefully it'll be one that's full of, like, realistic things that they can actually pull off, like, in the near future.
That was one thing JC was making it very clear to me, Charlie, and everyone else that he's not going to promise anything that he's not certain he can't deliver.
Right.
It can deliver, rather. So he's not going to tell us BS, which has happened before.
Okay. But anyway, thanks guys for coming on. I mean, I hope you've recovered from your hangovers, respectively.
I don't get them in Iceland, which is weird. I recommend that to everyone that goes, actually, just to experience the fact that you don't think. I woke up tired. I woke up a little bit grumpy. But I didn't have a hangover. I didn't feel like someone had put a meat cleaver through my skull. So I'm at the age now where a good decent hangover is a 2-day thing. So I was actually quite fresh every morning.
I hope everybody got something out of this Boots on the Ground. I mean, I've been wanting to focus on gameplay for a while, but this is like such a huge deal. And I don't know what we're going to be doing in the future as far as episodes go, because like. I don't know if it's going to go back to business as usual. I don't know what's going to happen with the roadmap. I don't know. But I mean, for certain, like, I'm still going to be doing this. And it's still going to be about Dust for the most part. Although, I guess we'll have, like, a Legion on the ground or something now and again.
Legionnaires.
Whatever. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. And I will see you next week.